co-founder of Social Value Collective. Vanessa is a purpose-driven leader with over 20 years experience working across the non-for-profit, public and private sectors. She has deep experience in what she's gained in delivering large-scale projects and programs across Australia, Malaysia and UK. Please welcome Vanessa.
Is that working? Great. A little bit overwhelmed by this room, I have to say. It's quite spectacular. But thank you for introducing me. Just a little bit about the Social Value Collective. We're a fairly new organisation that launched earlier this year, and our goal is really to amplify social value creation in Australia and to really be a network for practitioners across all sectors everywhere in Australia, and to support each other as individuals. So not about you as a business, because it can be a lonely place trying to create change in organisations. So I do encourage you to look us up online and to join the network, because we're really about supporting each other as we move towards this goal of business for good. So I am going to introduce you to a couple of our panelists. Now, this is the problem with being old. I need two different sets of glasses, one for reading and one to see you. So I'm delighted to have two people from two very different organisations join us. We have Kriss Alexander, where's Kriss? I saw him come up and join me, who heads up social impact and sustainability at Nando's Australia and New Zealand, and he's an advocate for social partnerships, social impact partnerships, sustainability, strategic decarbonisation, and creating and embedding circular economies within the hospitality industry. Welcome, Kriss. I'm going to sit so that I stop moving. And that was my timer, because I think we're going to talk for more than 30 minutes. And we have our second speaker, who is Joe, who I saw. There you go, Joe. Thank you. He's an industry leader in sustainability with over 2 decades of international and local experience in creating some of the most sustainable buildings, and leads sustainability and social impact at Built. Thank you, Joe. All right, Kriss, you have, I think, the best job title in the room today. It is, you are the Changing Lives Matter Manager at Nando's across the ANZ, which brings together sustainability and purpose, which is just exactly how those two need to come together. Can you tell us a bit about your experience at Nando's and what sparked the journey towards becoming a responsible business? And was there a particular moment or inspiration that pushed Nando's towards balancing profit and purpose?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, it's working. It's quite loud. So thanks for the introduction. So yes, those of you, or most, are probably aware that Nando's is a global hospitality brand. We have a global brand purpose of changing lives together. That purpose has then fed down into what we call our purpose framework, which operates in each of the markets that we have a presence. Part of that purpose framework are the pillars community, planet, heritage, and inclusivity. So we have always, from day one in 1987, wanted to make a difference to the local communities in which our restaurants operate. We obviously want to be a commercially viable business, but we also want to be able to give back. In fact, our kind of mantra as a business globally is having fun, making money, and changing lives, which is pretty neat. In terms of how we've embraced that journey here in Australia and New Zealand, I think, you know, we've already done a lot in the space in our local community of supporting food relief with organisations such as Second Bite and Oz Harvest. And then what we wanted to do on top of that is kind of broaden our impact to see how we can help with employment provision, and then also assist other organisations to expand and grow as well. So it kind of, you know, led us down the path of embracing social enterprise.
Thank you. So Joe, you're the head of sustainability and social impact at Built. And I guess compared to the hospitality industry, I would say the construction industry is probably far more mature in its understanding of social best practice, social impact best practice, and being a good corporate citizen. So, I think that from talking to you both, the built journey is a bit different to the Nando's journey. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what moment was it that you found that social purpose really was elevated within the business at Built?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the introduction and good to be speaking with you both. So at Built, and we're the largest Australian privately owned commercial contractor, and we've been operating for 25 years. We're doing some incredible projects like the Atlassian Central Tower, largest hybrid steel and timber building in the world. So we've always had a focus on delivering really sustainable buildings. And probably three years ago, the owners of the business came to me and said, "Hey, we've been doing charitable giving, we've been doing social impact kind of through random acts of kindness. We've tried it in some different departments, and we think, Joe, it's time to fold social impact into the sustainability team. What do you reckon?" And so I thought about it and thought, well, I'm pretty busy as it is. But actually, social impact is a key element of sustainability, right? It's core to what we do. It's core to what drives me and my purpose every day at work. And so I thought, okay, what can I use as proof points? And I thought about Kay Rayworth's donut economics model. And so I played that back to the business and I said, hey, look, I think this can be our new strategy. Sustainability, right? Keeping everything within the ecological ceiling that we need to maintain in order to be safe and live within Earth's limits, but then also its social impact on the bottom to maintain a social foundation, a floor. So I thought this could work really well together. So I thought about, well, what would that look like? Sustainability is really how we build. So we've set our green standard, our commitments to sustainability across all the work that we do. And then social impact can be how we buy, right? How we work and how we give. And for me, the how we buy was the biggest lever to create social change and social impact. If you think about a construction business that turns over more than $2 billion a year, and 85% of that goes straight out the door to suppliers and subcontractors, that's a lot of money that we have to play with to create social change. And we've been tracking it for the last 4 years. And over that time, we've spent nearly $80 million with social benefit providers. We've used 141 individual social benefit providers during that time. So it's been an incredible journey, and I'm really glad that they saw fit to combine those two elements within the business.
Like, I love donut economics, but it's a pretty, for some people, and particularly, you know, through the neoliberalism lens, pretty out there as an idea. How did you manage that transition and take your leadership on that journey?
The leadership saw the need. Obviously, they're focused on two main things, as most for-profit businesses are. Right? At the board level, at the executive level, it's profit, keep the business going, and it's reputation. And I played into both of those key drivers for them. Hey, there is a growing expectation that to maintain our reputation as a go-to contractor, we are operating in a way that drives social benefit, social outcomes. We are operating in a way that doesn't stuff up our planet, right? And if we're able to maintain that reputation, we'll be able to continue winning work and keep the business profitable. The two go hand in hand. And to your comment, we've long talked about sustainability being a response to businesses externalizing the pollution, externalizing the environmental ills. We've done the same thing to social inclusion. We've externalized social failings, right? We've externalized joblessness. We've externalized disadvantage as businesses. It's time we fold that in. It's time we internalize that. And as Tara was mentioning earlier, social procurement just needs to become procurement.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely the message for this morning. So I guess one of the things when implementing social impact within an organisation is that we are operating within a system, so there's lots of things we want to change. And one of those things is the culture within a business. So I wanted to just explore that a little bit, because that is sometimes the big challenge for big firms, particularly big global firms, Kriss. So let's shift our question around responsible business practices and how it affects internal dynamics, and how perhaps Nando's has embedded responsibility, particularly through social procurement, and how has that transformed your culture? Like, I know it's quite embedded in your purpose, in your job title, but what does that look like within the business?
It's a really good question. We, about 12 months ago, as a business, incorporated planetary and social impact metrics into our leadership team bonus scheme to help kind of drive that and reinforce that top-down culture within the business. We've always had great ambitions in a planetary space and social impact space, but now we wanted to start measuring them and understanding the impact that we're having. In terms of what that's done to our culture, so that's created a blended approach of kind of a bottom-up and a top-down culture of really bringing social impact and social responsibility to life throughout the organization. Within my role, I work with our Changing Lives squads in each of the regions around Australia and New Zealand that we operate. And those are team members that are on the front line working in our restaurants that help identify social impact opportunities and then feed them back up to me. I then align them with the top-down instruction, directive, and ambition from the business, and then help find that sweet spot of where we can actually elevate and amplify the impact that we're having. We've engaged with numerous social enterprises. A great example of that was how we identified a gap in our service provision for plant care and window cleaning across the entire business. We went out to tender, we looked at some standard national contractors, and we also thought that social enterprise would be a great opportunity here for social enterprise to engage with us and then us to broaden our social impact. I think because we already had that culture of identifying where there's opportunity for social impact and how to harness that within the business, that landed really, really well. We had a really successful trial with an organization called Cleanable in Victoria. Started off as plant care, watering plants and window cleaning, but then subsequently that's grown into enabling them to supply plants for all of our new restaurant builds and refurbs, and then extended their geographic presence from kind of like the main part of Melbourne to the external Melbourne area as well. So I think in answer to your question around culture, it's just we've been very fortunate and we've just had this smelting pot of kind of excitement and engagement towards the idea of social impact already, which has been identified and laid out by our purpose. And then we're very exploratory, I suppose, in our approach of understanding how we can, leverage that through different streams, and social enterprise happen to be one of those.
It's a great example of really working in partnership with social enterprise to deliver impact. But just because I'm trying to stay, and I've got so many other questions, but back to the culture, like what impact do you think it's had on your staff, like from an engagement perspective?
I think it's helped our staff understand more about inclusivity and how a business can do good. Working with organisations such as Cleanable in Victoria and Queensland, and then Green Connect in New South Wales, I think the presence of those local teams in our restaurants, speaking to our local team members, has really helped reinforce that Changing Lives culture. And that has encouraged them to then come to the table with more ideas. I mean, off the back of social enterprises, I've had, numerous inquiries or numerous ideas come to me up through the Changing Lives squads of how we can kind of further that impact and grow that culture even more.
I love that, Changing Lives squads as well. Great. Is there a tension between those local initiatives that come through those groups and the corporate strategy?
Initially, there was. I think initially there was a air of pessimism potentially around moving from a national contractor that serviced all of our restaurants for plant care, for example, and then engaging with more state-specific social enterprises that might not have operated at the scale that a national contractor had before. There's also that apprehension around whether the commercial benefit to the business would be the same. But I think that's, in my opinion, has dissuaded some businesses from embracing social enterprises. But when you actually spend time with finding the right partner, working through what a project scope looks like to bring to life within the business, it's very, you can see that commercially they stack up against some of these national contractors. So yes, there was originally, in answer to your question, but I think after the successful trial in Victoria, we really engaged the leadership team of the business to see that there's value in engaging with social enterprise.
That's great. Joe, I guess I'll ask you the same question about culture, because I think it's come, I guess, a little bit from the bottom up, I guess, at Built rather than the top down in terms of their purpose. In terms of how does that responsible business practice, how has it affected the internal dynamics? And how has it impacted your corporate culture?
Okay. Well, first I'd like to say, tap into the latent goodwill within your organization. So to everybody wearing a red lanyard, thank you for your work. Yeah, thank you for the good that you're doing for our communities. We rely on you and we really appreciate it. For everybody wearing a blue, think about your organization. Tap into the goodwill that's pre-existing. I was in a leadership course with senior leaders last week, and we did an exercise where we tapped into our values. And like half the people, one of their 3 top values that they held, personal values, was benevolence. It's sitting there. It's within, and this is a head contractor. These are heads of commercial management, health and safety, general managers of business units, and a lot of them hold that value of benevolence. Okay, and they look for purpose just like I look for purpose in my day-to-day job. They want that. So for us to provide a pathway to finding that purpose through the work that they do every day, through the subcontracts that they let, through the subcontractors they skill on site, right? We're actually giving back to our own people. We're giving them purpose. We're giving them a better place to work. So I don't know that it's changed our culture. It's probably just, what's the word? It's like, it's kind of unlocked something where people are already feeling this will to do good. It's kind of, it's said, hey, it's okay to have that feeling. In fact, we encourage it. We encourage it. We want you to act on it. Yeah. In your day-to-day work, we want you to contribute towards our spend target. Well, we've got a spend target with social benefit providers. And we set the strategy. All of the business units and the projects operationalize it. Yeah, they make sure that we get there. And for the more than 50% of people who work for Built, 1,200 employees, more than 50% are Gen Y or Gen Z. Yeah, they're millennials, and they won't stick around at a job that doesn't give them purpose. They won't do it, right? And so we're protecting our workforce as well. It works both ways. This isn't altruism, right? This is kind of, look, this is survival. To survive as a business, you must be aligned with social impact.
That's great. Has it redefined what success looks like for Built?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. So when we think about success and we think about board reporting, every month they see, how are we tracking on our social spend? How many individual businesses have we reached out to? And I think now what I need to put into that corporate board pack is a little story, a narrative around somebody's life who has changed as a result. Because we do focus on the dollars, we focus on the number of contracts let, and I think we'd be better served focusing on specific stories, of how we are changing lives through inclusivity.
Yeah, Joe, are there any lessons learned that you could share with the audience within their own business on how you start to activate those Gen Ys, those Gen Zs, and really drive that purpose and motivate them?
Yeah, a couple of things. So one is set a target and then hold yourself accountable to meeting that target, right? Um, it sounds like ticking a box. Hey, there's a lot of boxes to tick in business. So what? If it's a means to an end and it says, hey, at Bill, we spend 1.5% of all of our supplier spend with social enterprises. And for us, that's Supply Nation, that's Social Traders, that's B Corp, that's Kinaway, right? Certified businesses, they take the vetting work, the legitimacy work out of it for us, so we don't have to spend our time determining whether this is an actual legitimate social enterprise. We go certified, right? So thank you to Social Traders for your work on that. But set a target, hold the teams accountable, celebrate the successes. Caught up with Pete recently on Teams. We did a video meet and greet. I recorded it so that I could share that in our Meet the Suppliers series on our intranet, so that I can provide a face and a name, a capability, and a location of operation for anybody in our company to tap into. So all you social enterprises out there, please come see me. Let's set up a time for a Meet the Suppliers video, yeah? Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll ask you the same question I asked Kriss about. Are there ever any tensions between locally inspired ideas and like corporate strategy?
Sorry, are there tensions between?
Tensions between initiatives that come, and I guess, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit because we had a Community Connect session yesterday with Social Value Collective, and one of the conversations that a lot of practitioners find is sometimes the tension between environmental outcomes and environmental targets and social targets. Do you ever encounter anything
I
like
don't
that?
encounter that. If anything, the difficulty we face is sufficient businesses. So yeah, to meet our 1.5% target, or if it's on a government job where we might have a 3 or a 4% target, we are, take an $800 million project, right? The subcontract sizes are 20 million and up. They're huge, right? And the tension, I will say, that we find is unbundling, is breaking up a $20 million package and breaking it up so that there can be a $500,000 package that we can offer up to a social enterprise that isn't skilled up, or sorry, I shouldn't say skilled up, that doesn't have capacity to deliver at that $20 million scale. That's a tricky thing. But that's where we activate tier 2 spend. That's where we empower and expect our subcontractors, that $20 million contract, to go out to social benefit providers, whether as suppliers or as subcontractors. So for me, the tension is availability.
Yeah. Good segue, I guess, really into this long-term vision of change in the economy so that all business is for good, because that is a bit of a challenge, right? For big business is the supply, like there's the demand, is the supply of social enterprises. So I guess my question to both of you is, what role are you playing in helping address that, building the capacity, building those long-term relationships and partnerships? I think you already gave one example, Kriss, but as a business, do you identify that as an issue? And what's your role in that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Joe put it very, very well. Different types of business that we work within, and Built is obviously very large scale compared to Nando's in terms of like projects and so on. But the capacity, absolutely, we've got very strong growth plans as a business in ANZ. As we grow, we want to ensure that our social enterprises are able to, maintain the capacity to continue to partner with us. And we absolutely play a part in helping provide them the opportunity to step up. So an example there would be, and I reflect again on our partnership with Cleanable, just recently they've expanded into the Queensland market. And we were the first key contract for them in that area because we absolutely valued the amazing work that they do for us in Victoria. And we jumped at the chance to be able to support them to grow, because we know that Queensland is an area for us that we want to open a lot more restaurants over the next 5 to 10 years. So by enabling a valued partner of ours to grow into that estate and then, help them grow with us, I think that is one of the key roles that business has with growing social enterprise.
100%.
So for me, I think it's always been a dream to make Built a social enterprise. we're we're not there yet, but we have done a gap analysis on B Corporation. I would love to see that. Yeah, I think that we all have the opportunity, the smarts, the people to create social enterprises out of any scale of organization. Yeah, if a business has an ESG policy and they can continue ramping that up, they can become a social enterprise. There's no reason we can't. I was reflecting on the fact that I'm one person in a 1,200 person company, and I was riding my bike over here, and I something in my foot, right? And I got in here and I took off my shoe and I dumped out this tiny little pebble. So it doesn't matter how small or insignificant we may feel within a broader organization or context. We can be that an annoying little advocate for change, so that after enough repeated messaging, the business owners get it. They see the value, they see the benefit, and before long we'll all be social enterprises, right? I think that's the key, is just keep jumping up and down for change.
And sorry, if I could just add to that, I think that's fantastic, Joe. I think advocate is a key word there. We recognize that as a brand, Nando's in Australia and New Zealand aren't the largest restaurant brand at all. So we're not necessarily able to directly leverage change in the social enterprise landscape. But what we can do is advocate for it. So, create that narrative of our partners, and then in every opportunity that we have talking to peers and industry, talk about the successes of that narrative, and then help advocate for other businesses and help inspire them to grasp social enterprise.
Amazing. Like 2 great case studies here. Yep.
Just
Very good.
the other thing I was thinking about is I met Susie, I was young, 25, 26 or something, and very idealistic. We worked together at the Green Building Council many years ago. And I just remember being so impatient for change, so impatient. And then there's this quote, and it's attributed to Bill Gates. I don't know if it's his, but we always overestimate what can be done in a year and underestimate what can be accomplished in a decade. And so I think that what I'm seeing as I get older, and I'm now in my 40s, right, I'm seeing that there is a change that happens across generations. And the people who were agitating, advocating, impatient, idealistic when I was 25, right, are now getting into senior leadership roles. And so for whoever thinks it's crazy to think that a for-profit contractor could become a social enterprise, well, give it 10 years. We will get there. We will, because this next generation, and I'm on that cusp species of X and Y, right? We won't stand for it. We don't want to live in a world that prioritizes greed over collective benefit.
I am just conscious of time, and I wanted to open questions up to the floor, but I think, thank you, Joe and Kriss, and I do have a couple more questions, but I think you've captured quite nicely some of the challenges and opportunities, the need for that long-term kind of partnership approach to create the change. Does anyone have any questions for Joe or Kriss? Oh, got a couple. Yep, straight ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. It's actually quite refreshing, but I shouldn't really say that, because we're actually in a room where everybody's really in the same space to hear what you're actually sharing. To that point, sorry, Kathy DeMarcos, Solutions to You. To that point, everybody here is actually thinking and aligned in what needs to be done. So the reality, for those of us with the red tags is, how can we actually help and enable those that are actually sitting in positions that are trying to convince others who hold the power to actually contribute in a way that is genuinely going to make an impact? Because they're here, you're here, aligned with us, but not necessarily able to make those decisions for their companies, especially if they're publicly listed. And I think that's often overlooked.
Mhm.
So
Great question.
Yeah, look, I resonate with the struggle, and I appreciate you raising that issue. Nothing levels the playing field and gets businesses operating on the same page like regulation. So advocate to your local, state, federal members of parliament. I'm gonna write a letter to Dr. Sarah Kay, I think it was. I really think that we all need to be advocating for a level playing field. It's the same thing with sustainability. Wherever we're hoping that it'll just be about competitive advantage, it's not going to bring everyone along fast enough. We need to set the bar higher for everyone to jump over, and that needs to include social procurement as an element of just how government and private business does business. Laws. We need laws.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. I think regulation is key. If you look at it from a sustainability context, an example which springs to mind is the packaging legislation change for takeaway packaging from a restaurant business perspective in South Australia and WA, moving from recyclability to compostability in September earlier this year. That forced every single business to engage and find a solution. And, we're now, all compostable in those two states. I think from a social procurement piece, if that is filtered into, legislation and regulation, I think that will be the system change that we need. In the meantime, again, advocate for social enterprises out there. Don't be afraid to reach out to organizations and let them know the services or the products that you provide, because I think you'll be surprised how many organizations are on a social procurement journey and just don't have the resources or the facility to be able to do that fact finding. So by you reaching out, I think, many of you would be surprised that, what opportunities could come from it.
Oh, lots of questions now. Nicola. There's two there. That's all right.
There you go.
That's all right.
I'm Nikki from Australian Social Value Bank and Social Value Collective. I was just wondering, given that you're almost ahead of the change that's coming hopefully on a larger scale, have you worked with any large suppliers who have changed their behaviours because of your new rules and requests that have gone, oh crap, we're going to lose our contracts, or we're going to lose some of it if we don't change our ways, and real change, not just kind of that superficial get the contract change?
Yeah, I think an example there would be that over the last 12 months, we've incorporated planetary and social impacts requirements into our supplier agreements. As we are coming up to renew contracts or tender new suppliers to the business, we want to be playing with those organizations that have the same ambition as us. So that's certainly opened up a plethora of organizations that are already engaged with social enterprises. And I just think we're sharing best practice between one another.
I've been given the cue. I told you we could talk for a long time. I did warn you all of that at the start, and I did put my timer on as well. So thank you so much for Kriss and for Joe. We are going to stay here. Please come up and talk to us. Thank you for Social Traders for convening us today. And I hope you all have a great day.
Yeah, big thank you to Kriss, Vanessa, and Joe. We're going to be heading into morning tea now. We have a little reflection basket out in the drawing room. So if you have any thoughts, come and share them with us as well. Don't forget, we've got the Social Traders Info Hub. Go chat with Alex, go chat with Pascal. Just a quick reminder, in the next session, we've got turning dollars into change. So after morning tea, you're going straight into your next breakout section. So we've got turning dollars into change. We've got place-based strategies for positive outcomes. And we've also got lessons for working with government. So have a think of where you would like to move to after morning tea. That will be around 11 a.m. So we'll see you next door.